All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to the year 2024. Yes, the year of XDefiant, because, well, in quarter one of 2024, this game is set to release. The only question is exactly when. I made a video speculating about that previously. There was even a poll that I did, and apparently you guys think that the game is going to release I believe in the first or second week of February or whatnot, which absolutely makes sense. But that's not exactly what this video is about when you think about it. So now that we're finally in 2024 and we know that XDefiant is going to come out and we're all looking, I mean, obviously I could feel something is coming when it comes to XDefiant, but I just don't know what it is. It might be in the form of a trailer sometime this week. It might be the announcement of a beta over the weekend or coming up or something like that. It could be a big tweet by Mark Rubin giving us information. However, I will say this, and this is realistically speaking, XDefiant, regardless of the fact that we are in the year of XDefiant, I do want to say, though, that ultimately right now, the window for XDefiant is open, but it's temporarily open, right? XDefiant has a window in terms of when to meet its launch. And some of you guys might be wondering what exactly I mean when I say this. So I'm going to get into that right now. So what I mean is that now, first and foremost, I've always said in previous videos that Call of Duty and XDefiant can very well coexist, no problem. However, one thing that is kind of interesting is that I actually think that fairly quickly, now I don't know exactly how fast fairly quickly would be when it comes to the gaming space. However, this is what I see. Call of Duty can very well make a turnaround and improve for the better for the community. I really do see that, because I'm going to explain why. Because watching videos now, as you guys know, December 29th was Bobby Kotick's last day at Activision, right? And I was going to make a video about it, but I decided not to. But what I did, however, watch a lot of people that did make videos on Bobby Kotick. I watched even people that I didn't see. I just looked it up in the search tab and I just watched a bunch of videos. And it even reminded me of a time to where there was like an interview or something like that, and Bobby basically had said back in the time, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he wanted to take the fun out of video games or something like that. So I'm like, whoa. And then obviously with all the other things that people were covering about Bobby Kotick, a lot of devs, ever since his last day or the day after the last day, a lot of devs, some devs have come out and spoke basically in a few details in terms of how horrendous he made it for people to work over there. So and went into a couple details here and there in terms of what he did, right? I mean, they're basically not allowed that much creative freedom, and then there's like, you know, whatever maximizes profits, etc., including one of the people that I believe worked at Demonware or whatnot, but that's besides the point. What I'm trying to tell you is that Call of Duty's biggest problem in terms of the person who ultimately runs the show is no longer there. And a lot of positions are actually going to be replaced. Some people are going to leave either later this month, or at the very latest, some other people in executive positions are also going to be gone. I believe, as I read properly, it was in March. And I believe Phil is still going to be taking over Bobby's position. You got Matt Booty taking over and a whole bunch of other things. But anyway, so I don't even know who a lot of these other people are that were mentioned in the article, which is one of the reasons why I'm not even covering it. However, if the biggest problem that Call of Duty has had over the last 10 years, I mean, obviously, a lot of people over the years have been obviously, like when you do a search on Bobby Kotick, you know, you're definitely not going to find the kind of the kind of memes. Like for instance, if you did a search on Phil Spencer, it's definitely going to be like the same kind of search that you'd find for Bobby, if you know what I mean, in terms of the results that you would get with the kind of memes and Photoshop pictures and all that kind of stuff. You're really not going to find that with Phil like you do with Bobby. And Phil has been at the head of Xbox for like a decade now, if not close to that. And if there was some dirt on Phil Spencer, I'm pretty sure we would have known it by now, right? If Phil was doing some of the things that Bobby has been said to have been doing or whatnot, then we would have definitely heard it by now after all this time. So I think in terms of moving the chess pieces around and getting the right people in the right position, and Xbox being the ones that actually allow their creators to create, I think Call of Duty can potentially be in a good spot. And now that the main person that was the biggest part of the problem, if not the problem itself, is no longer there, then I guess you can say to a certain degree, potentially the healing for Call of Duty can begin. And if I have any sort of suspicion whatsoever or prediction, I would say that Call of Duty could heal pretty quick if the moves are done correctly and if Microsoft plays its cards properly and lets the creators create, because all of these developers that work for Activision Blizzard or whatnot, they're developers just like everybody else. But the thing is that for the longest time, they have been either severely limited or completely cut off from creative freedom, which is exactly what developers do. They're creators, right? I mean, imagine me not being able to, imagine me being limited from doing the content that I want on YouTube. Or imagine me being like let's say I wanted to talk about this, like, oh no, you can't talk about it or whatnot. So now, in terms of the subject of skill-based matchmaking, engagement optimized matchmaking, I don't know if these guys are going to be as transparent. I mean, because that's not happening in Halo. I know Halo sure as hell does have its own fair share of problems, but it has improved over the last 6 months to a year. I can assure you of that as a person who has played the game and is literally, and in terms of the direction that Halo is going, that, like, seriously, Halo unfortunately had other problems that was holding it back ever since the beginning. Call of Duty had different kind of problems, but with that being said, I think that Call of Duty's potential and healing is definitely there, and XDefiant really needs to get things up and running as soon as they possibly can. Obviously, I know that the developers want this to happen. I know that the rest of us that are looking forward to the game want to happen. But the thing is, XDefiant also not only does it need to release, but it also needs to get some momentum under its belt, right? And obviously, by the end of its first year, it's actually going to be a full multiplayer game with all of the content that you would expect from a multiplayer game. Because as you guys know, as of right now, as far as we know, which could obviously change because they've taken extra time in order to, make sure everything is up and ready to go, obviously, as far as we know, we're getting 14 maps at launch, which is great, but we got 24 weapons, which is a little bit on the lighter side. We've only got 5 game modes, which is on the lighter side. So, and then of course you got ranked and competitive. You got no skill-based matchmaking. So, and then you've got the 5 factions. So, it's got enough, if not more than enough, to sustain itself and to keep it going. But obviously, it's not going to be enough in order to grow, because XDefiant doesn't just want to sustain itself and keep going. It also wants to have continuous success. Now, obviously, just like every other game out there, especially since it's a multiplayer game, you do plateau at some point. But at the same time, when you look at some other gaming franchises out there that have managed to kind of change things up or add things or remove things or kind of tweak things and play things around and be really transparent with the community and kind of follow feedback and go by that they've managed to stand the test of time, and you get people that will flux in and out, and they're still obviously a success. I mean, the one game that comes to mind is Fortnite. I remember hearing Prime Pete in one of his commentaries while I was at the gym. One of his commentaries basically said that like there was some sort of movement that they did with one of the seasons. They like reduced the movement or something like that, or slowed it down. And then the community was all over social media saying how much they don't like that. And then within 24 hours, they addressed it. And then it was about 2 to 3 weeks later or something like that, to where they actually updated it and changed it to the way it should have been, which is incredible. And that's Fortnite right there. So I see a similar type of vibe going on with XDefiant. However, before Call of Duty, if this does happen, and if Call of Duty actually starts to quote unquote heal and go in the right direction, so to speak, and starts making a 180 turn or whatnot, and heads itself in the right direction. I think the process is going to be rather quick, but at the same time, we need XDefiant to be able to get a good amount of momentum, so that way more players can actually play that game, because a lot of people are also Call of Duty refugees. Let's not forget about that. So more players can play the game, and so that way they would kind of actually eventually just go back and forth, because a lot of Battle Royale players, sure, there are a few Battle Royale players that prefer one over the other, sure, but at the same time, a lot of people really love the Battle Royale genre. So you've got Apex Legends, you got Fortnite, you've got, so you've got a few Battle Royales out there, and there's a reason why a lot of games made Battle Royales, because a lot of people like them. So it's like, so what I'm trying to tell you is, so that way so that way XDefiant gets its fair share, and so that way it gets its time to grow. Because remember, upon release, that is when the growth process begins, because once you release, then after that you're going to be looking into seasonal content, which is going to add some more meat onto the bone of the game, and therefore not only help carry the game, but also to keep it growing, at least for the first year or maybe even 2 years of its iteration. And if you look at a game even like Halo Infinite, that game has actually changed for the better quite a bit ever since its launch. There's a lot more content. There's a lot of things that are going back to home. There's all sorts of talks of a search filter, just like the Master Chief Collection, as well as the fact that the biggest thing that a lot of people are waiting on right now that are playing multiplayer is that they are going to be doing a big ass overhaul to where they're going all the way to the beginning of how the netcode was made, and they're going to be doing play sessions and stuff like that, so that way they can basically make it to where it's a lot more playable, so that way there's no rubber banding or desync. Well, every game actually has desync. A pro player actually told me that themselves, but the thing is, like, it's just not noticeable, or a hell of a lot less noticeable than what Halo is getting, quite frankly. So yeah, this is good news, though. I mean, I want both games and both franchises to coexist peacefully, but at the same time, I want XDefiant. Even if this was not an XDefiant channel, or if I wasn't as enthusiastic on XDefiant, I would still feel a similar way, because remember, the game begins to grow once it releases. Before it releases, there's pretty much nothing going on when you come to think of it. I hate to say it, but it's true. So XDefiant needs its growth window in order to get the people in order to make a name for itself and to get things moving. And then obviously with the seasonal content that is going to be coming with the game, that is what's going to be ultimately the difference maker. And at the same time, it allows the developers to prove to the community, as both new players and the players that are familiar with the game, that, hey, not only are we here to stay, but we're going to be some of the most transparent developers, and we're going to give you guys what you want. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are excited for XDefiant, simply because of the fact that they know that this is what they're going to get. They feel it, they trust it, and they can't wait to get it. That's one of the reasons why it's been so hard to wait. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to end it here. I want you to tell me what you guys think. Do you guys feel a familiar type of ponder that I'm pondering, so to speak, as Pinky, or the brain from Pinky and the Brain used to say? Are you guys feeling that, or do you guys think XDefiant has basically, no time window? They can just keep going to the beat of their own drum and they can still succeed regardless. So I like to know where you guys stand on this. So anyway, with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.